Please. I'm Julie Witt, the LMC specialist here at Cooper.
Hi, I'm Debbie DeSalvo, 6th grade teacher at Cooper.
Hi, I'm Peggy Ehart, also 6th grade.
And I'm Laura Hollis, in 6th grade as well.
So we are here to talk about how we came up with our authentic unit and the process we went through. And it didn't start out originally as an authentic unit design at all. When I was looking forward to getting the Chromebooks in 6th grade, I contacted my friends Julie and Erica Scheidel, as well as Tracy Crowley, to ask about how we can incorporate more technology into our current lesson plans in social studies, since I wanted to make the best use of the Chromebooks. And when Tracy sat down with us, the first thing she said was, it really isn't about using technology, but let's make it authentic for the kids, and the technology part will fall into place.
So one of the challenges that we experienced is that we basically had to let go of our ancient civilization lesson plans. Instead of teacher-directed, it was student-centered. And so that was a challenge for us, specifically me and some other teachers, to let go of taking control of the classroom and putting the control in the lap of the kids. But we still had to guide them carefully.
It allowed us to kind of take a fresh look at how we did our lesson plans. Since we were utilizing the technology now, we were able to open that up and really change the way we taught from the past, and just really focus more now on the students and their needs.
We had focused our lessons on the ancient civilizations, starting with ancient Mesopotamia, then Egypt, China, etc. And with this, we realized that we wanted to focus more on one of the themes of civilizations. We had talked about political, social, and economic systems. So for this unit, we decided to look at the social system, and then we incorporated all of the units we'd already done on all the civilizations, including Greece and Rome, and we focused on the social system as the lead rather than the civilization to direct the learning.
Right.
And each of those, the political, social, came from the power standard. So we just kind of took the power standard and the frameworks and then designed the lessons for the authentic unit based off of that information.
So what did you find when she made it more student-centered and more authentic while you were teaching?
So that was a great learning curve for all of us, whether we were concerned about it or not. But what we found is that we really didn't give the students enough credit for the fact that they had capabilities already for doing research, for working collaboratively, for being able to problem solve and come up with answers for the unit that we were studying.
Since we'd already done, in the past we'd already done the civilization directed, we were worried that we weren't going to teach the stuff that we needed from ancient Greece and ancient Rome the way we had in the other civilizations. And we found, as we watched the kids research, that they were digging deeper into some of the civilizations than maybe we would have been able to get to anyway. And so the learning was very real for them. As we talked about the social system, they had to go and research ancient Greece, and they really took it and ran with it.
I definitely found that the students took more ownership of their learning. They were able to identify with the content and really make it their own and enjoy learning. For the first time, you found that kids were really just saying, I had fun, and they could tell you information and carry out a conversation in depth with you about a civilization or about the social system, and they weren't just reciting facts anymore.
I was just going to say, so how did you take the social system doesn't sound very exciting to kids. So how did you make it more, how did you kind of take your content and flip it to make it more student-centered or your problem more authentic when that stuff took place so long ago?
We were posed with Tracy initially said, what is a problem that we have in our current social system? And one of the first things that we came to mind was that there's a issue with voter apathy, and there's not a lot of people that vote, and some of our elections are decided by a minority of our population. And so we started with there, and then it grew from there, and we went through how did the social system, how did voting work in ancient civilizations, and how did technology work in what kind of technology was available in ancient civilizations, and that's how we tied in those power standards from that, and we tied our current day civilizations to ancient civilizations.
And the great thing about this, instead of, and we're all great teachers, but instead of us teaching the kids about the history of the ancient civilization, they were teaching themselves, and then they were able to draw a connection to present day voting. So they learned about voting in the past, and then they learned about voting today, and they were able to compare and contrast voting, and then they were able to think about, and conjecture about why there is voting apathy today, even though in the United States we're all in a democratic society, we can vote. So it was interesting for them to find out what happens in their own home, what happens in their own community, and then compare it. So it was much more authentic that way.
And you can tell just by the language the students were using, they all understood now the concept of what a democracy was, what it means to be a representative. They were able to connect the different ancient civilizations and their forms of government, where before it was just us giving them that information, and now they're able to bring that information home and have those discussions with their families and talk to them, talk to different representatives, use the tools that we have on as forms of technology and make those connections as well. So it would just brought in a lot more information than what we were able to get out of a textbook.
So you did the social systems problem with voting. What other units have you worked on with this? I was referring to our summer conversations. So
Well,
is
we decided that since it went really well with our social system, that instead of teaching through the lens of the civilizations this year, we're going to teach the entire year through the lens of the systems. So we are starting with the political system. We'll do the economic system in the second trimester, and we'll do social system again in third trimester. We did have to teach this lesson twice because we have 6-week periods and blocks, and so we tweaked it. The first social system problem was, how can we encourage more people to vote based on the voter apathy with a survey that the kids put together and sent out to the district and to the rest of the school. And then the second time we did it, they did how can we get people who are not able to vote, because many people in our family are not eligible to vote, how can we get them more involved in the political system? So we still use basically the same idea, but we were able to tweak it to have a different survey for different kids. And this year with the social and the political system, economic system will get
Right.
more done. We're still working on it.
And another thing that's really cool is we had the kids come up with questions for the survey, so that it wasn't us creating the questions, it was student-centered. They were using their knowledge of what they learned about voting, either past or present, to create authentic and purposeful questions for a survey. And then we as teachers edited those questions because some of them were redundant. But again, having the kids lead all of this has been extremely purposeful for their learning.
And it's a really easy way actually to differentiate, because you're able to allow the students to work at their own ability level naturally. So what they feel that they can flourish in is the area that they kind of take on that task. And then other areas of weakness, they're just helping to build by working on those skills throughout the Authentic project as well.
So you're planning on doing this through your social studies classes all year long?
Yeah, the social system that we're currently working on, we're connecting it with our school theme with Pathway to Knowledge. So we're working on having the students connect to where they currently live and how that impacts their education, and what problems that poses if you have a stronger education system somewhere as to where you live versus someone who doesn't, and how we can make it more equalized throughout the United States.
So we just started talking briefly about a potential communications project, and while we knew what our outcome was going to be for the social studies project, I think the outcome for this communications project we're talking about might be different. Maybe the authentic audience might be letters to representatives or school board members, or it might be, encouraging the state Department of Transportation to do something. So there's a lot of different avenues that the kids can go on the next one too. So we'll continue to explore.
And I would just like to say that the best way to approach this is rip the Band-Aid off and just go for it. You can't hurt anyone in the process. Use your standards as your guidelines. Bring people in that are experts, like Tracy and Julie and Erica were extremely helpful to us. And you would be surprised with all of our background knowledge, how much we really can add to the planning. And as we went along, we tweaked it pretty much every day, and we would have the kids reflect upon what they learned. And so we would take their verbal reflections and tweak it for the next day lesson plans. And so it's been a really positive experience, and I can't remember if it was the end of last year or this year where we said, this is how I want to teach all the time. This is the way I want to teach all the time.
Yep.
So it's really been a really good experience.
And I think a lot of it's trial and error. And you have to see what works, and every day is not going to be a success, but it is a success because the kids learn from their mistakes, and as well, so does the teacher. And just realize that you need to reflect every day on what can we do different, and have that conversation with the students as well is really an important part of the authentic learning.
And going down this path was very scary for some of us, and some people were very resistant, but everybody in the end really enjoyed doing it, and we're very happy that we did. But it was not always easy.
As the team worked on this political systems unit, we found it very helpful to keep referring back to the Authentic Learning Unit Planner. Once we determined what power standards we really wanted to narrow in on with this unit, then we could work towards our essential understandings and the guiding questions of how we would get there. The authentic problem was really where we needed to pause and think about what would be interesting for our students. What is the modern day problem that they will want to help solve? This took us a long time to come to this point. At some points we were able to fill in a lot with this planner, and then we were kind of stuck in the authentic problem column for a while, and it does take a while to talk through it. Once we came up with our problem, we had to think about some of the limitations of our authentic audience and who we wanted that audience to be and how we were going to get the message out to them. What helped us work through this unit planner is we kept coming back with the advice of don't throw everything out that you have done in the past. You still have good lessons that are good. You still have things that you have used in the past that you will reuse. You're not reinventing everything. And for this first unit, it really just helped us to just kind of jot it all down, to start with our background knowledge and what we usually do to hit these power standards, and then what we really want to do with it in the authentic unit. So I think that helped a lot of us once we got kind of our mind around the fact that, we are still using some good 6th grade curricular units lessons we've pulled from before, but then we're looking at them in a different way and using them to get to our power standards and essentially come to what our real purpose, real product, and real problem is.